What if I told you that the biggest heist in history didn't happen in a bank vault or a casino, but on a moving train in the dead of night? This isn't a movie script. This is the true story of how a gang of ordinary criminals pulled off the crime of the century, stealing the equivalent of 800 crore rupees without firing a single shot. Sticky around because you won't believe how they did it and how one tiny mistake brought their whole empire crashing down. On the dark night of August 8th, 1963, a Royal Mail train was speeding from Glasgow to London. Inside, mailbags were stuffed with a fortune. The driver, Jack Mills, saw a red signal up ahead strange for this time and place. He stopped the train, and in that sudden silence, a master plan was set into motion. This was the Great Train Robbery. The plot began months earlier, hatched by London's underworld, led by a mastermind named Bruce Reynolds. He had a secret weapon, an inside man at the Royal Mail. This informant, whose identity remains a mystery to this day, gave them 2 golden tickets. First, the train's high-value package coach, usually fitted with alarms, was out of service. A replacement coach with 0 security was being used instead. Second, and even more crucial, was the timing. Due to a recent bank holiday, the coach wasn't carrying its usual load. It was carrying nearly 12 times the normal amount of cash. This wasn't just a robbery. It was the score of a lifetime. The gang, now over 15 members strong, knew this was their one and only shot. As the train chugged along, the robbers put their plan into action. They had tampered with the railway signals, forcing the train to a halt at a deserted crossing. They quickly swarmed the engine, overpowering the driver. Their plan was to detach the first-to-coachista engine and the money coach, and drive them a mile down the track to Bridego Bridge, where their getaway trucks were waiting. There was just one problem. The retired train driver they'd brought along couldn't operate the modern engine. In a panic, they forced the injured driver, Jack Mills, to move the train to their designated spot. Once at the bridge, they stormed the Hevalu coach, tied up the staff, and formed a human chain. In just 15 minutes, they moved nearly 2.5 tons of cash, bag by bag, from the train into their truck. They had done it. They had pulled off the impossible, fleeing to a nearby farmhouse they had rented as a hideout. The robbers were ecstatic. They celebrated their victory by playing a game of Monopoly with the real stolen money. But their celebration was cut short. They heard on a police radio scanner that authorities were closing in, creating a 30-mile search radius around the crime scene. How did the police know? Because one of the robbers had told the captured staff not to move for 30 minutes. This gave police a clear idea of how far they could have traveled. In their haste to escape the closing net, they made a fatal error. They wiped the farmhouse clean of fingerprints, but forgot about the Monopoly board. The police found the hideout, and those fingerprints on the game pieces were the breakthrough they needed. Since the robbers all had prior criminal records, it was easy for Scotland Yard to match the prints and identify them. Within days, most of the gang was arrested. The court sentenced them to 30 years in prison for the crime of the century. The inside man was never identified. The train driver, Jack Mills, never recovered from his injuries and the trauma, passing away a few years later. The bridge where the heist took place is still known today as the Train Robbers Bridge, a permanent monument to one of the most audacious and infamous crimes in history. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. See you in the next video.